Okay. All right. Hey, everybody. It is Thursday afternoon, and this is A Mighty Blaze Celebrity Conversations. I'm your host, Jane Roper. Thank you all for being here today. Before we get started, just a quick announcement. You see, I'm wearing my vote shirt because y'all should vote. Yes, and as you may have seen on our Facebook page, we've also got some amazing Blaze the Vote swag. So if you want to get in on that, our Mighty Blaze voting push, pick up some of that swag. You can find the links on Facebook. So we've got a fantastic couple of authors here today. We've got Christina Clancy celebrating the launch of her debut novel, The Second Home, and we've got New York Times bestselling author Eyre Ward here, who also had a recent book come out, The Jet Setters, in March. So I'm going to do a quick intro. Welcome to you both. Thank you for coming to A Mighty Blaze.
Thank you for having us, finally.
Yes, yeah, so psyched you could be here. So I'll do some brief intros and then I will kick it over to you, Amanda, to get things started. Those of you who are watching, if you have any questions, please let us know in the chat. And if we can get to them, we will. All right, so Amanda Eyre Ward. New York Times bestselling author Eyre Ward is the author of Sleep Toward Heaven, How to Be Lost, Love Stories in This Town, Forgive Me, Close Your Eyes, The Same Sky, The Nearness of You, and most recently, The Jet Setters. Gosh, you're prolific. She's also the author with Jardine Libert of a nonfiction book, The Sober Lush. I love that title. That's such a cool title. Amanda's novels have been featured in People magazine, the New York Times, and more. Her work has been optioned for film and television and translated into 15 languages. In a review of The Jet Setters, which came out in March, what a wonderful month to have a book come out. That must have been
great, yeah,
fun, terrific. The New York Times book review said, Ward nails how family expeditions are ruined and saved over and over again by fleeting moments of connection and the consensus to survive without killing one another. Yay. Amanda lives in Austin, Texas, and Ouray, Colorado, way up high. She currently writes every morning and spends afternoons with her children. Oh, welcome, Amanda.
Thank you.
And Christina Clancy is the author of the debut novel, The Second Home.
I'm going to show them as you speak.
Oh, yes, hold up your book. Hold up your book. There we go. Wonderful.
I like having you hold it up, Vanna White.
Yeah.
Then you don't have to worry. Oh, you get the double. Yeah, there it is in stereo. Perfect. Good Vanna, Amanda. That's a good, nice Vanna. It's about a Milwaukee family's complicated history with their summer home on Cape Cod. The Second Home has been named one of 10 outstanding summer-fall 2020 debut indies introduced by the American Booksellers Association. It also selected the novel for the June 2020 Indie Next list. And you told me there was an Amazon thing too. What was the Amazon pick?
Amazon named it their Book with Buzz for
Book
June.
With Buzz for June. All right. It was a Book with Buzz for June. Awesome. Book List, in a starred review, called it a riveting family saga that fans of J. Courtney Sullivan, Christina Alger, and Maria de los Santos will devour. With nostalgia as thick as the scent of coconut-scented sunscreen. I love that. It makes me think of my babysitters. The Second Home explores the consequences of emotional decisions and the strength needed to set things right. Pulitzer Prize finalist Rebecca Mackay says, Christina Clancy writes with warmth, wit, and wisdom about fantastically human characters. Originally from Milwaukee, Christina now lives in Madison, Wisconsin. She received her PhD in creative writing from the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee and previously taught creative writing at Beloit College. Christina's short stories have been in places like Glimmer Train, Pleiades, and the Minnesota Review, and her essays have appeared in such places as The Sun, the New York Times, the Washington Post, on Wisconsin Public Radio, and elsewhere. She recently completed her second novel, Shoulder Season, which she looks.
Go, Amanda.
Oh, wow. Is that already in? You've already got galleys?
I got the galley yesterday, and Amanda got it yesterday too. Isn't it pretty?
That is so exciting. Oh my gosh, what a great cover.
Isn't it wonderful? I love it.
And we can see why it's called Shoulder Season now.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's going to be out in 2021, right?
Yeah, it's going to be out when the pandemic is over on July 6th.
Right. It's going to all be over then. It's going to be.
Yeah, I'm gonna go on a book tour.
Yep. It's all going to happen. It's going to happen. It's all going to happen.
Yep.
All right. On that wonderful note, optimistic note, Amanda, we'll let you kick things off.
Well, great. Thank you so much for having me. I love A Mighty Blaze. I love Caroline. I'm so happy to get to speak with the two of you. And especially hearing that blurb about Christina, I am a big fan personally and of their work of J. Courtney Sullivan and Marissa de los Santos. So what a wonderful thing. And I'm so glad your book came to me. And we were supposed to appear a long time ago when your book came out, and mine had just come out, I think. And it was crazy. But I loved your book so much.
Oh, thank you. I love yours.
And it's so fun to be able to talk to you. And actually, there's a lot of similarities, I think, in terms of family, in terms of finding a second home. And I was just reading through some of your book club materials. And one thing that I really loved, and I'd love to hear you speak to for a moment, is this idea, and you can tell this story. Someone in your family said to you at one point, we need to choose to make our family a family. And in one way, having one special place where you go helped solidify that choice. So can you tell that story? I loved it.
Oh yeah, no. So the book is set on Drummer Cove in a town called Wellfleet in Cape Cod. And my grandparents lived there in a house that's been in our family since the 1880s. And we, the book is actually set next door though, in a really old house. So my grandparents had retired to this house. And so I had a different experience of, we talk about second homes as just places that people go in the summer, but for me, it was a little different because my grandparents were there all the time. So when we would visit them, it would just happen to be in a vacation destination, but we would do Meals on Wheels with them. They were active in the library, like they knew everybody in town. They were, part of the firefighting, like to raise money for the new firehouse. And so we got to know it that way. And then my grandparents passed away 4 days apart. And so did my great-grandparents, who passed away 4 days apart in the same house, which is strange. But my mom and I were driving around one day and she was just gutted. She had just lost both of her parents really suddenly. And she said to me, she's like, it's so hard, Chris, when your parents pass away, because suddenly you're the last generation or the oldest generation. And you have to decide with your siblings whether you're going to stay a family. And if you are, what that's going to look like. And I was floored by that sentiment because I never thought of family as a choice. I always thought you just had family, and that you would always stick around. And it was so deliberate. And I think it was a great thing that she said to me, because I tend to be the person in the family who's always organizing reunions and like checking in on people and making sure we all stay in touch, because otherwise you really can lose touch with your cousins and aunts and uncles. People just go off and live their own lives. So I think that was part of the decision. And then it kind of ties into the second home because we kept the house on the Cape. It could have fallen out of our family, but my aunt and uncle bought it. And thank goodness they did, because I think it's like a placeholder for us. It's, it helps provide a cornerstone, like some sort of touch point, like keep us connected to each other. And even though it's not ours, we rent it. We had a family reunion there. But I think it's nice to have like one place that you associate with one side of your family. How about you? Because with your house in Ouray, I wonder, do you feel like that kind of holds your family together? And is that part of the reason that you got it?
Well, it's interesting. We were just talking about this, those of you who are joining in later. We were talking about this beforehand, that my husband's family has been going to Ouray, a little town in Colorado, since the late 60s. And so they had a house there, and then cousins and aunts and uncles have houses there, and now we have a place there. And it is true that in some ways I'm closer to that side of the family, and my own family doesn't have a place like that. Just financially, we weren't able to do that. I see my sisters and my mom all the time, but the cousins are all in New York, and I see them one by one. But it really is a special thing to be on vacation together. And so interestingly, I think what I'm going through now, which is living in Ouray longer into the year is a little bit what happens in the second home. Some of the characters take this paradise and decide to make it their real home, which has a lot of drama involved.
Yeah, it definitely is interesting to think about how people aren't leaving this fall, and we have
yeah. The little school in Eyre, where my daughter has just started, has 26 new students, which is a lot for Eyre. There's 10 kids a grade. So 26 new students of just people who are hanging on there. In the fall, it's really nice. I've never been there in the fall.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder how permanent this is going to be, like if this is going to change the way people think of what vacation is. And if they're going to like living year round in their vacation homes. And, like in Cape Cod, like there's a huge heroin epidemic in Cape Cod. Like who knew, and there's been a lot.
I lived there.
Oh, you did? Oh, I want to hear more.
We have so many things in common, but for one, I lived in Milwaukee and was a waitress at Elsa's on the Park.
Get out.
And when I left Elsa's, it was to go to graduate school in writing. And the guy said, "We think you have a real future at Elsa's and you're making a big mistake." And so I need to go back and be like, it worked out. Thanks. Yeah. But that was fun to waitress there. My boyfriend from college worked for Harley Davidson. So we ended up there in the Oriental. It's like some really cool building. Anyway, and then my husband is a scientist. And after graduate school here in Austin, he took a job at Woods Hole. And so we lived in Katamet, actually, and Falmouth, and the winter was very grim. 2 winters we were there. It was really hard. And we went to Nantucket in the winter, and it really gives you a different view of things. For one, the dark side, because the weather itself is so dark. So yeah, it's a hard place to live. And so most of my friends there live there year round. So I've been doing book clubs with them through this pandemic, and they are like, our towns are so, but then they only let people who live there go have beach passes for a while in some parts of the Cape. So they were like, woo, it's July and only we can go.
Oh, that would be really nice in Cape Cod.
Can you imagine? Yes, around the pole. But anyway, so can I ask just like a straight craft question?
Yeah, Christina?
Sure. Okay, so I had a very hard time with the Jet Setters doing a character-driven novel. I've always had a crime, a mystery, a really strong narrative thread. And I had to go back and spend an extra year on the characters because for some reason it did not come naturally to me to just have them do these deep interior monologues and memories of their childhood and things. So I wondered, did that come naturally to you to do? Because you do it so beautifully. You really get to know these characters and their secrets.
Well, it's so interesting because I was actually going to ask you about how you made your characters so accessible, because I felt like I knew them, they felt very familiar to me and accessible. So I wanted to talk about that. So this is a good parlay. I actually just taught a class this morning on character development. So I've been thinking a lot about, I was on a Zoom call with Jamie Brenner, who wrote Summer Longing, and that's set in Provincetown. And I was also with Karen Duquesne. It was like a Cape Cod writers call. And it was so interesting because we were talking about characters, and characters are a starting point for me. Like that's where everything begins in my writing. And somebody had said something about my characters seeming really real. And I said, oh, they definitely feel really real to me. I feel like if they walked in the room, I would know them. I know what their breath smells like, that's how familiar they are. And Jamie said, it's not like that for me. She said, I start with the plot and then I use the characters as vehicles to move the plot along. And I was fascinated by that because it never even occurred to me to start with the plot, even though I think that's kind of how a lot of us are taught to write, is to begin with the story and not with the characters. So I've been thinking on that a lot. And then, and I also question whether they need to be as real as I thought they did. Another writer I was on a call with was saying, my characters are only as real as I need them to be. I just need to know the part of them that serves their role in the narrative. And that was another line that completely blew me away, because I always thought the goal was to have totally well-rounded characters all the way around. And his book was exquisite and the characters felt really real to me. And I thought, maybe you can just think about like, what is the reason for this character being in the story, and you access only those parts of them, and you don't, maybe we waste a lot of time and effort trying to make characters 100% whole. I say that without really believing it. Like I like having fully fleshed characters, but that's just how I write. Like my book started with Poppy, you know, like it began there.
I do the same. I also begin with character, and I think character is the most important thing, period. And it's funny, I can't imagine not spending 90% of your time on character. But I did find, to your the second comment that the person said about only accessing part of the character, when I've written one straight thriller, Close Your Eyes, and I'm writing a thriller now, a sort of thriller suspense. And it is very hard when your characters are well-rounded and you need them to do certain things in service to a thriller plot or a crime novel. Because with Close Your Eyes, I'd say, okay, the character has to go to Manhattan and find this necklace to connect it to who her mother was. And then I knew her so well, and I'm like, she's not getting on a plane to Manhattan this weekend, you know? And it was so difficult. And I felt as if, you know, the best thrillers that I've read, the characters are a little one-dimensional because the author has to yank them all over town. Yeah. And they have to seem like they would do that. But I think for me, it was that I knew the characters in the Jet Setters so well that I didn't put it on the page. So when my editor said, why would Lee do this? I'm like, well, of course she'd do that because of this scene from her childhood where she realized she can't trust Cord. And my editor would say, well, you need to put that on the page. So it felt to me like overwriting to say, oh, this comment, she felt sad because it reminded her of her childhood scene when this happened. But I did that in the second draft, literally gritting my teeth, because it felt like show, don't tell was what I was taught. But it seems to have struck more of a chord than my other work. So maybe I was thinking of the reader for once, you know?
Yeah, no, that's fascinating. And I'm really glad we're talking about character because it really has been on my mind a lot. I was on a call yesterday and Lauren Fox was talking to Leslie Kagan about her new book. And she said something that I wrote down because it sounded really profound. She said, when I read your book, she was complimenting Leslie on her characters. And she said, I know how they'll react to something, but I don't know what they'll do. And to her, that sounded like the sign of a good character. And I thought, that's really interesting. I know how they'll react, but I don't know what they'll do. Is like a really cool, I should put that on a Post-it note for when I write again. You know, and it's interesting too, because like the second home has so many characters, has 3 different narrative viewpoints, you know, and then my new book is just one character her journey. Yeah. And it seems risky because she's going to really screw up. Like she has to fail a lot. It's a coming of age. So how do you make a character endearing enough to the reader that they're willing to stick around with her while she makes mistakes? I mean, how did you feel that way when you were writing characters who make mistakes and do bad things? And
that's a great question. And that was so sorry. I have not figured out how to unlink my dings in the middle of Zoom. So sorry about that. You know, that's a great question. And so when I got the notes that my editor said the Jet Setters isn't working because I don't care about these people, basically, I didn't understand that because I did care about them. So and it's my 8th book, so I thought I knew what I was doing. I was wrong. So I emailed a lot of writer friends. It's the best, you know, we both have a lot of writer friends. And I asked them what they thought. And my friend Andrew Sean Greer, who wrote Less, who's one of my oldest friends, it's such a great book.
Such a good.
He said, you are not very kind to these people. You need to be kinder to them. Like I was making fun of them to some extent. And it was because I'm hard on myself, I think. Sorry.
If you figure out how to do
sisters, you can see my adult sibling issues.
Oh yeah. If you figure out how to stop that, let me know because it happens to me too. So I'll probably be next.
Yeah, I know, they're crazy. Yeah. But so being kind was something that I still think all the time about. Am I being kind? So then if you're kind to them, I think that the reader has empathy for them.
Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah. No, that's really interesting. I think, yeah, and like respecting, not really like necessarily liking them, but respecting them. Which of your characters do you hear the most about? Is it Lee?
No, it's Giovanni.
Uh-huh.
Everyone loves Giovanni. Oh my gosh. I swear I need to text my mom and sisters because they're just calling me. They're going to keep calling. It's like when my 8-year-old daughter, if she doesn't reach someone, she just keeps calling. That's what 8-year-olds do. They just keep calling till you answer.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, yeah, it's Giovanni. Cord's fiance is everyone's favorite, including mine. And he is based on my best friend's young husband. And I love him. And so I think because he gives some levity to the book, people love him. And so do I. How about you, Christina?
I hear a lot about Anne. People don't like her. I call her my cilantro character. Like some people really like her a lot. I like Anne, but some people don't like her as much. And I think that she's been dealt a hard card, and she sticks around and she helps her parents. And sometimes I'm like, why is everyone so hard on Anne? But I like it that people have strong feelings. It's fascinating because I thought everyone would love Poppy because she's just, like I like Poppy. Like I'd want to hang out and have a beer with Poppy and do yoga class with her. But I think that she's too flaky to some people. And both sisters kind of represent, I try not to make it cliche, like, oh, we have two sisters and they're very different, and they represent two different sides of, of existence. I tried not to make it too stark that way, but I think
it's how it is with sisters, I would say.
Yeah, no, it's funny. My younger sister said to me, she was like, you're such a contradiction because you want like to explore and have adventures, yet you're afraid to, you like to nest at the same time. And I think both of those parts of me are in those characters. Like Anne is the part that can't let go, and Poppy is the one who lets go too much. So it's interesting to see how people respond. And I also love how people respond to male characters because like I was on somebody was posting about my book on Instagram, and they were like all about Michael. And then somebody else got really mad and like, no, Brad is hotter. And they're like, no, Michael could break Brad in half. I'm like, no, Brad could break Michael in half. Like it's just really funny to see how people would respond.
Nobody has ever thought one of the men in my books is hot, ever. Even though some of them are, in my mind, but in a kind of flawed, maybe paunchy way.
Dad hot. They're dad hot.
Yes, exactly, which is what I like, luckily. Yeah. Well, yeah. Jane, what books have you been reading that you've been liking these days?
Oh, God, can't put me on the spot. You know what I read recently is The Book of V by Anna Solomon, which I loved. And I'm not just saying that because Anna's a friend, but it was fantastic. So I highly recommend that one. But I'm on the lookout for, like, I need something fun and escapist. So I don't know if you've got recommendations for something just like fun and I need something funny,
I wish that shoulder season was out because it's kind of fun.
Fun or funny. I don't know. Which I haven't. Let's see. Amanda, I read one of your books years ago. I think it was Sleep Toward Heaven. That was not fun and funny. It was really good.
On Women's Death Row.
Yeah.
I mean, it has this weird sense of humor that they make a birthday party for one of the other women on death row, and they get tang and cream cheese from the commissary, which is true. And that's how they birthday party. So it has this, some people think it's funny, but no, obviously it is set on death row. So, but there's a lot of funny Texas stuff because I wrote that book when I had just moved here. Texas is crazy. So, there's a lot still to write about, but there is so much in that book of sort of me moving here and like going to a barbecue restaurant and they give you barbecue and a bag of Wonder Bread at even a nice barbecue restaurant. Yeah, still in the bag because I don't know. That's just the way they do it. I'm trying to think of fun books, and I am reading all the time. One of the greatest parts about Eyre is that there's a little public library that is still open, and they deliver.
Nice.
Wow.
You can get new releases. So I will put in, all these great new books, and they get delivered to my house. But none of them are really fun. I guess I don't really gravitate toward that. But I like writing it now. I really do. Yeah. It was so fun to write a book about happiness, which I hadn't done before. It was hard. It was the hardest.
Yep.
It's fun.
Yeah. I think Be Frank with Me by Julia Claiborne Johnson is pretty fun.
Okay.
That's a good one. And then Nothing to See Here.
Oh, yes. That is on my list. That is on my list.
That book is nuts.
Yeah.
He is a genius. I was reading it and just like going, oh my, what? How does he do this? I loved it so much.
When I heard the premise, I'm like, I'm not going to read that. And then I listened to it and I was like, he's doing it and I'm all in. I'm along for the ride.
Yeah.
Great.
Right. I loved that book. Yeah, that was incredible.
We had Laura Zigman on a couple of weeks ago interviewing Heidi Pittler about Heidi Pittler's book, Impersonation, but her latest book, Separation Anxiety, sounds like it's very funny. Like it's about a woman who wears her dog. Like her kids are older and she decides to like wear their Sheltie on her chest like a baby for a while. So that's on my list too.
I love that. I love Laura Zigman and Heidi. So that sounds like an amazing conversation.
Yeah, it was a good one.
Well, I am trying, all I do now is look at vacation destinations that I can't go to these days. I'm trying to think of places that are drivable, but my mom lives in Savannah, so we are trying to plan how on earth we can go there. But I know, Christina, that this book is about vacations. Have any of you had one or planning anytime?
Actually, next week we are heading to Palm Springs for 2 months.
Whoa.
Yeah, I love Palm Springs. And it's just so miserable here in November, I think, because in Wisconsin, like it gets dark at 5 o'clock. You just want to go to bed. It's cold. I don't know how I ended up in such a cold climate. I love the summer and fall and the shoulder seasons, but I'm not such a big fan of winter. And because my husband's working from home, I thought, well, this is one of the rare opportunities and we can do this. So in the height of the pandemic, we were at a backyard barbecue at a friend's house and somebody said, there's just nothing to look forward to anymore. And I just thought of that so much. And I thought I need something to look forward to. So this is maybe in March, like the end of March. Yeah. And at that time, all the vacation rentals were really affordable because everyone was freaking out about what to do. So I just booked it. And I was like, this is so reckless. This is so excessive, but I got a great deal. And I keep thinking they're going to cancel our reservation because they could get more, but
right.
So,
I mean, that was the feeling I had when I decided to book a Mediterranean cruise. But I had this idea for the Jet Setters and my editor loved it. And I thought, we don't have a ton of savings and we have 3 kids. And I was like, I need to go on a Mediterranean cruise with my 2 boys. And I had just gotten sober at the time. And it was this sort of like, I don't know. It was this part of me that was just coming out and saying what it wanted all the time. And this voice in my head was like, you deserve that. So go do it. And it was so that moment when I clicked buy on a 10-day and plane tickets to Athens and stuff in July. And it was those glorious 10 days with my boys, because there's a lot of stuff about parenthood that I find overwhelming and I'm not great at, like cooking and cleaning. But, showing kids around Barcelona, yes, that is what I can do. And it was so great.
Well, I was going to ask you this because, with your characters, how they go to these different destinations. And it seems like when you're on vacation, it's a time to assess your role as a parent and to think about your family. And, you don't have to have a second home for that. You can just go put a tent in a public park. But it is kind of interesting how once you get away from all the minutia of your domestic obligations, you can suddenly become kind of introspective. I was in Arizona last November and I went hiking on Camelback Mountain and I was following all these people and I was by myself and I was just listening to their conversations and they were all talking about it was a bunch of guys. They were all talking about their wives or their girlfriends, like some of them were dating people. And I thought, that's the kind of thinking that you do when you're in a place like this and when you're hiking and how you your mind, you focus on different things in different places under different conditions, obviously. But on vacation, I always think about what kind of parent am I? Yeah. How's our family looking these days? Do you think that's part of what you were trying to get at with the Jet Setters?
Well, Honestly, I have found when I'm gonna even put quotations around vacation to our second home, it's not a vacation for me. I mean, I remember I posted a picture once of my daughter in a sled, and we'd just gone to the grocery store, and there was Cascade next to her in the sled. And I posted it as this, I thought people would be like, you have such an idyllic life. And there were all these comments like, yup, even on vacation, you have to buy the dishwasher detergent. And I thought, well, actually, yeah, because the boys and my husband were skiing while I was schlepping the sled to the grocery store. So
have you seen that Onion headline that I love? It's
yes.
like, yes, area woman performs household tasks in closer proximity to the ocean. I was like, yes.
I know. So one of the crazy parts about a cruise, and you know, my husband is a climate scientist, so I know how appalling they are in every way. But it is this removal of all domestic obligations. And I also once went to Belize with my kids one summer. My husband works in the summer a lot. He's a geologist at UT. And I stopped complaining and started traveling with my kids for exactly this reason, because I was resentful when I was just doing it all by myself. But when I was at, you know, a new location, it all seemed exciting to be packing and finding dinner and backpacking around. But the cruises are the ultimate. You just don't have to think about dinner. All three of my kids, one of my daughter's a vegetarian, my son likes burgers, fine. I don't even have to know when they're eating. Yep. And so I didn't realize that about cruises. I just kind of wanted to see what it was like and set a book on one. But that was the most amazing part. So we really had so much time to play Monopoly or have conversations, all of those hours and all of my brain space of figuring out who goes where and the food, it was gone. And so all I had was time to be happy with them. Because usually I am working or I'm with them and doing all the domestic obligations. So it was heaven. And then the following summer, we did a 2-week Caribbean cruise, and I wrote the book because the cruise ship people took care of my children. And everybody was like, I mean, I'm sure everyone thought I was some divorcee on the cruise, but it was just working mom, you know, and it's cheaper than summer camp. Right. I don't know that cruises are starting to happen again, believe it or not. They are already filling up.
So you guys both, I think both of your book, Christina, and your most recent one, Amanda, sort of fall into the like beach read category, right? Because they both take place in vacation times. And what you were saying before, Christina, about like the things people think about and the things that come out on vacations. I wonder if that's part of what really characterizes a beach read, you know? Is there this time to...
I have a lot to say about beach reads.
Okay. Yes, bring it.
You know, it's funny though, because I worked on my book, you know, it's set in Wellfleet, but I never, ever thought of it as a beach read. Like to me, I was just writing about a place I love and a place I know well. And I don't think of it, like you were saying about you, Ray, like you do things like, I don't think of Wellfleet necessarily as a vacation destination so much. I think of it as just part of my life. So it was really interesting because, you know, as soon as you sell your book, suddenly the conversation around it is different. It's not like how good is the writing? It's like, how are you going to sell it?
You're going to market it. Marketing.
So the cover of my book looks like, I'll just remind you, like just like it looks pretty light, you know, it's like pink and it's like, it looks like dusk. And I think people are kind of surprised when they read it, and it's a little bit darker than a typical beach read. And I feel like sometimes readers, like, you know, they are sometimes really happily surprised by that. And sometimes they're like, oh, I wasn't expecting something this heavy. And then Publishers Weekly, when they reviewed it, they're like, with her eye firmly on the beach market. And I thought, that is so unfair. Like if a man wrote a book that was set in Cape Cod, they wouldn't say that. You know, I just thought it was kind of a gendered thing too. But that said, I have nothing against beach reads, and I have nothing against something marketed as a beach read. It's just really interesting, like to become so aware of how a book is packaged and what reader expectations are because of terms like beach read and stuff. Right. And my next book, I'm sure, will again be a beach read, which is fine. Like it's definitely a super fun, like summer read to have, but it's so interesting. What did you think about being a beach read, Amanda?
Well, I mean, most of my books, the covers really vary, and in other countries too. So sometimes the same book will look like a dark thriller in one country, and in another country will look fun. And I mean, it's funny because I went to graduate school a while ago that was mainly men at the University of Montana. And I really think for a long time, I wrote to impress those guys. And the last few years, I have just started embracing being a strong middle-aged woman and writing whatever I want, and sort of being proud of being funny, being proud of what some people call the interior, women's interior worlds. And part of that has been shedding. Like, I am thrilled if people call it a beach read, because I love beach reads and I love the beach and I'm smart and I love sort of embracing that, the whole of it. And I think I would have been so horrified early in my career to be considered a beach read or chick fiction or whatever. And now I think, well, all of my brilliant friends read things and want an escape. And I think it's a dream. I really do. And so a lot of those guys aren't even writers anymore. So like, I don't know. And they're thrilled for me to do well. So yeah. The thing that's attached to it is that beach reads sell well. So I think that however they want to package it is fine.
I love the way your book is packaged, by the way. That cover is so amazing. Like, I saw it the first time and I never needed to be reminded of like what that cover is. And congratulations, by the way. What's it like having it picked by Reese? And
it's been incredible. This is my 8th book and my first New York Times bestseller. So and again, it's like I would have felt overwhelmed early in my career, and now I'm like, I'm ready. I want another. And we talked about the cover. The cover, as soon as we saw it, was perfect, which has not been the case with many of my other covers. But we couldn't decide if it was going to be yellow or peach or blue. We didn't know. Mm-hmm. And so that conversation went on for a long time with a lot of my friends. And I'm glad we picked the yellow. Yeah, I think it's great. And the Reese thing comes, you have no control over it. It's been an absolute dream come true for a million reasons. But the Hello Sunshine crew is amazing. Mm-hmm. And so they picked it, and then we went into lockdown. And my publisher paid to put it at the front of every airport, and every airport shut. So that was crazy.
Oh, no.
But still, she is just such a powerhouse, and her people are so amazing. I happened to go there and meet them right before the pandemic. And I've since done all sorts of other collaborations with them. They really just have this huge platform of smart women readers, and it's such a gift to be plugged into that network. And then one of the things they gave me was a copy of all of the Reese picks, some of which I hadn't read, and I just love them all. They are the definition, not necessarily of a fun book, but really a compelling, smart books. They're totally different, but all of them are, every one I pick up and just really enjoy it. So that's been fun for me, just going through those.
Christina, we'll pray that we're going to hope for shoulder season to get on that list. That would be awesome.
Yeah. I actually, like, part of me too, like after having a first book come out during the pandemic, it's kind of in a way a good thing. Like, I feel like nothing could really faze me now. There's a media blackout the day of my book came out, and, my tour was canceled, like one stop at a time. And it's kind of nice now with the second book. I'm like, whatever happens, it'll hopefully be good. And if not, I'll volunteer a lot.
Well, it really is the writing. I've had books that have done really well and books that have not. And almost you can't tell till a few months before. Right. And it has no real relation to the quality of the work. And you get to go back to your office and write, which is what we all love to do.
On that note, let's make sure we can tell everyone where to get your books. So for Christina Clancy's The Second Home, hold it up one more time. Let's see it. Beautiful. I love that cover. Really nice.
Pretty, isn't it?
Yeah. So you can get that at Arcadia in Spring Green, Wisconsin, Arcadia Books, and Boswell Book Company in Milwaukee. Do either of those have signed copies?
They do.
Okay, they have signed copies. Cool. So if you want your signed copy, that's where to go.
Yeah.
Otherwise, hit up your local indie bookstore, or you can go to the Mighty Blaze store on bookshop.org. And for Amanda's book, if you want to hit a couple of her hometown place, there's the Beautiful Jet Setters and the Sober Lush, another awesome cover. Book People in Austin, perennial favorite, or the Ouray, it's Ouray, not Ouray, right?
Well, it's pronounced many different ways.
Okay.
So whatever, however you feel compelled to pronounce
Ouray
it.
my way.
Yeah.
The Ouray Bookshop in Ouray, Colorado. And that's on the $1 Million Highway, which is like amazing.
You can risk your life and then buy a book at the end.
Yes. It's worth it. So you pick up the Jet Setters, Sober Lush, or any of other Amanda's titles, and same deal, get it at your local indie or on the Mighty Blaze Bookshop. Thank you, everyone. Thank you both, Amanda and Christina. This has been so fun. I feel like we could just keep on blabbing for eternity. So, thank you both for being here, and best of luck to both of you. All right, so long. Vote, everybody, vote. Bye.
Bye. Voted. Bye.